The slap didn't even sting as much as the silence that followed. It happened in the middle of a crowded dining room, right as the waiter set down the breadbasket. My sister barely even looked at me when her hand landed across my cheek. She just flicked her hair back and said I was overreacting, like I was some dramatic extra in her perfect little show. What hurt wasn't the slap itself. It was the way my parents froze, then slowly turned their attention back to their plates. No shock, no anger, not even a raised eyebrow. My mother just sighed like I was the one causing a scene, and my father muttered something about keeping the peace. If a stranger had walked by, they'd think this was a normal Tuesday tradition for us. My sister, glowing in her expensive dress, leaned back in her chair like royalty. She loved moments like this. She fed off them. Every insult, every humiliation, it was her version of applause. And my parents, they always encouraged the performance by doing absolutely nothing. I sat there, trying to steady my breath, while the entire table pretended it didn't happen. No one asked if I was all right. No one asked why she hit me. My aunt looked away. My cousin took a sip of water, like he was trying to disappear behind the glass. It was the kind of silence that wasn't empty. It was heavy, intentional, chosen. I realized something important in that moment. This wasn't a family dinner. This was a hierarchy. My sister at the top, my parents beneath her, and me somewhere under the table, legs like I was barely part of the picture. But the thing about hitting rock bottom in front of people who claim to love you is that sometimes it wakes up a part of you that's been quiet for too long. While they stared past me as if nothing happened, something inside me finally snapped into clarity. If they wanted drama, they were about to see a version of me they'd never prepared for. The rest of the dinner dragged on like a slow, deliberate punishment. Every clink of silverware, every quiet whisper between relatives, every forced laugh from my mother chipped at the last pieces of patience I had left. My sister behaved as if nothing had happened. The slap was just a casual limb movement to her, like brushing away lint. She stayed glued to her phone, tossing smug glances at me whenever she caught my eye, as if daring me to react again, so she could play victim in front of everyone. I kept my hands in my lap, breathing through the heat in my chest. Not because I was scared of her. I wasn't. I was tired of being the easy target, the silent buffer they used to deflect their own dysfunction. While they laughed and passed dishes around her, I watched the scene like an outsider observing a family that wasn't mine. My mother hovered around my sister like a personal assistant, adjusting her napkin, reaching for dishes on her behalf, even cutting her steak into smaller pieces, like she didn't have two working hands. Meanwhile, when I asked for water, my father pointed toward the kitchen and said I knew where everything was. That was the level of difference between us. A gap wide enough to swallow years of hope. Halfway through dinner, the conversation shifted like it always did, toward praising my sister. Her job, her apartment, her clothes, her potential. My parents lit up when they talked about her, their voices rich with pride. When someone asked about me, the room dimmed a little. My mother's smile tightened. My father cleared his throat. My sister rolled her eyes as if my existence inconvenienced her. That was when my uncle asked the question that finally lit the fuse. So what's new with you? Making any progress? Any successes you want to share? The whole table turned toward me, but not with curiosity, with expectation. Expectation that I would admit I had nothing. Expectation that I would shrink into myself like always. Expectation that I would let them win by staying silent. My sister leaned in, smirking. I mean, what would she even say? She's been the same for years. My mother didn't correct her. My father didn't intervene. They let her jab land, freely. Something shifted inside me. Not anger, Clarity. The kind of clarity that shows you exactly where you stand and exactly what you need to do next. Instead of answering, I stood up. The chair legs scraped the floor sharply enough to make a few relatives jump. The sound cut through the room like a blade, silencing even my sister's running commentary. My mother's voice came out sharp. Sit down. Don't start again. My father added, we're not doing this tonight. But I wasn't reacting emotionally. I was steady, calm, almost eerily controlled, something they didn't know how to handle. I slid my phone from my pocket and placed it on the table. Not dramatically, just intentionally. My sister frowned, confused. My parents stiffened. They recognized that posture. It wasn't rebellion. It was decision. Where are you going? My mother asked, her tone clipped but nervous underneath. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized she had no idea who I was anymore. She'd only seen the version of me she crafted, the quiet, obedient, overshadowed one. But that version had quietly expired the moment my sister slapped me, and they collectively shrugged. I'm leaving, I said. No yelling, no shaking, just truth. And this time, not just from the table. My father's jaw tensed. Stop being dramatic. My sister snorted. Yeah, please, you're embarrassing yourself. It almost made me laugh, the idea that me standing up for myself was dramatic when my entire life had been a series of them creating scenes and then blaming me for reacting. I reached for my coat and walked toward the doorway. Relatives exchanged awkward looks, unsure whether to follow or mind their business. My mother called after me again, but her voice cracked just enough to reveal something she wasn't used to feeling around me. Uncertainty. My sister stood up, scoffing. Let her go. She'll come crawling back, like always. But I knew they hadn't even begun to understand how wrong they were, because they didn't know what I'd been doing for the past year. The work, the planning, the independence I built quietly away from their judgment. They didn't know that I wasn't the dependent, fragile version of myself they still imagined. I stepped outside into the cool night air, letting the door close behind me. It wasn't a dramatic exit. It was a clean cut, the sort of separation you don't undo easily. As I walked away from the house, I felt something strange rising in my chest. Not sadness, not rage, relief. A weight I'd carried for years slipped off my shoulders, and I didn't look back. But I didn't know yet how quickly the consequences of my exit would come crashing back into their perfect little world. And they had no idea that the next time they reached for me, they'd find someone they no longer had any power over. 2 weeks passed before my parents finally reached out, not with concern, but with panic. My sister had tried to host another family dinner, and without me there to absorb the tension, everything cracked open. Relatives questioned her behavior. Someone finally mentioned the slap. My parents couldn't defend her without exposing their own favoritism. Meanwhile, I'd moved into a quiet apartment across town, started a new job, and settled into a life that didn't revolve around anyone's approval. When they showed up at my door unannounced, they looked smaller, like people who suddenly realized the person they dismissed had been holding the family together in ways they never saw. I didn't invite them in. I didn't argue. I simply told them the truth. I wasn't coming back to the role they built for me.